In this video, we're going to take some time to look at tag libraries and how we can reference tag libraries and use predefined code right on our JSP pages without even needing to know how to program in Java. So today what we're going to cover is first how we can get the JSTL tags library for the core tags, the core library that we're going to use on our pages for this section. We're going to then look at how we can install and use that core library right on our pages, and we're going to take some time to discuss the common core library tags that we'll be using throughout the rest of this section. So the first thing we need to do in order to work with the core library is, of course, get a copy of it. Now, why do we need a copy of the core library? Well, unlike the standard actions, the standard tags or the core library tags that we're going to be using, they're not directly included with our container. So what we need to do is go ahead and get those tags, and we'll put the code into the library folder and use that. Now, the reason this works this way is because what we're actually getting is predefined code that's been precompiled. That jar file then is an executable jar file that's essentially going to live on our server that we can reference all that code without having to write it ourselves. So you'll note that there's a link here, download.java.net/maven/1/jstl/jars/jstl-1.2.jar. Now that's what we'll be using for our demonstrations here because we are using Tomcat 7. If you're on Tomcat 6 or greater, 1.2.jar is fine. If you're on Tomcat 5 or less, you'll need 1.1.jar, so you might need to do a quick Google search for that. Additionally, if you're on Glassfish, you may need a different version of the JSTL as well, so just quickly check your documentation on that. But you could always just try 1.2 and see if it works. So this link will also be included in a text file in the next lesson where we're going to actually do some of this in action. So you don't necessarily need this right now. We'll be doing this in the next lesson. So how do we install the JSTL jar? We're actually going to see that it's very easy to work with the JSTL jar file. And we'll do this in a lesson following this video. So the next video we can be doing this side by side and you won't need to necessarily do it as we're talking about it right now. What we're going to do is simply move the JSTL jar file into the library directory on our container, which in our case is the Tomcat 7 library container. When we want to work with the code for it to work once we've moved it there, of course, we first need to either restart the container manually or we need to build a new project and then restart the container to run that project through Eclipse. Either way, we'll restart and thereby give us access to that library folder. If you're running Tomcat, you'll need to, of course, stop it and start it again. The other thing that we have to do in order to make this work with our code is we're going to have to reference the JSTL jar file directly in our project by changing and configuring the build path. It's similar to what we would do if we want to include JUnit in our build path. What we'll do here, though, is directly reference the external jar file that will be located in our library folder directly from Tomcat. So we want to make sure to use that one so that when we start up our server, we're referencing the same code base and our project works as expected. So the rest of this lesson, what we're going to do is just discuss the core JSTL tags that we'll get with that standard library, and then we'll see those in action throughout the whole section. So to use a core tag, what we need to do is include the tag directive on our JSP page. So that's the final directive that we're looking at. And we'll note that our core tags are going to be referenced with a prefix of simple letter C. So they'll have tag syntax less than C colon function name greater than anything else less than /C colon function name. Core tags are used for programming, for flow control, for working with things on our page without even needing to know Java, and we'll see how we're going to be able to replace scriptlets by using these core tags as we go. So we'll see that there's a link here from Java EE5 where we'll be referencing this core tag library directly from, which is of course still usable in our current version. And these tags are again prefixed with the C colon, and this lists the keyword or function on the left-hand side and what the actual function of that function is on the right-hand side. So what you can see here is these are in alphabetical order, and if you go to that link, they're pretty much essentially presented in the same order with a little bit different description. So the catch is of course going to be used. C-catch will be used for error handling. C-choose will be used in combination with a when and an otherwise, which we'll see in a moment, for switch-like conditions. We have the if, C-if, for straight-up conditions. We have C-import to bring resources into our page. We have C-for-each to do looping, which is going to be very handy, we'll see. We have C-for-tokens, which allows us to do iteration on tokens with a delimiter. We have C-out, which of course is page output. We have the C otherwise, which is going to be used again in conjunction with C choose, and that's our default. If you were building a switch, you would say default. This is the otherwise. And the import parameters go along with the actual C import. So this is just like when we had our JSP forward and we could put parameters on the page to forward it to. This is the same thing. We can actually use some parameters in that to import. We have redirect to essentially do response.send redirect, so move to a different page. We have cremove and cset, which work in conjunction to add or remove variables into any scope, such as our page context was with our expression language that we learned last section. And we have the curl, which is essentially a nice way to do some anchor tags with some different programming right there in our code. And when is the specific conditions that we'll use in our switch-like statement on our pages. So when true, this will be executed, and then our default, of course, is otherwise. We'll see that all in play again as we move through this section. So that wraps up our look at the JSTL library and some of the core tags and how we're going to install it.